for the family thing?
Yeah, but it's okay.
Meryl Streep is a troubled actress, and Shirley MacLaine is her movie star mother in Postcards from the Edge. That's one of the new movies we're going to be reviewing this week on Siskel and Ebert. And we'll also have an on-the-spot report from this year's Telluride Film Festival, which is one of the most important held in this country every year. I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times.
And I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune. Actress Carrie Fisher, best known as Princess Leia in Star Wars, in real life had a serious drug problem, and in her autobiographical novel, Postcards from the Edge, she wrote in a wickedly funny manner about her experience in a drug rehab clinic. The movie version of her story, however, is more about her stormy relationship with her showbiz mother, played by Shirley MacLaine. The film picks up with Carrie Fisher's character, played by Meryl Streep, after she's just gotten out of the clinic and has started to work on a new movie. The filmmaking doesn't go easy right from the start, as the producer, played by Rob Reiner, wants her to take a drug test.
It's the damn insurance company. They just won't cover you without a screen.
I see.
I understand we're behind you 100%. It's just, it's a formality of the business.
While working on this movie, Streep runs into another filmmaker, Dennis Quaid, the old boyfriend she spent the night with the night of her drug overdose.
Nothing happened. We just talked. And then you took my Daradil.
Why?
And then you fell fast asleep.
Am I so completely unappealing to you?
Quite the contrary. It's just that you were a little the worse or better for substances, and I have rules about that.
The centerpiece of the film is the mother-daughter story. In the picture's best scene, the two women go at each other and at their weaknesses, Streep complaining about MacLaine's showboating style, her drinking habit, and her constant belief that mother knows best.
Remember my 17th birthday party when you lifted your skirt up in front of all those people?
I did not lift
including
my
that guy,
skirt.
Michael.
It twirled up! You only remember the bad stuff, don't you? What about the big band that I got to play at that party? Do you remember that? No! You only remember that my skirt accidentally twirled up!
And you weren't wearing any underwear.
Well...
Despite the joking at the end, the emotion in that scene seems quite real. And this movie is at its best when the dialogue is as sharp-tongued as it is in that scene. I think MacLaine's performance is actually the strongest in the film. In the movie-making scenes within this picture, Mike Nichols strips away a lot of the movie-making phoniness and how movies are made to show us a bunch of basically frightened, insecure people within his profession. What I didn't like at all about the film, however, was its conventional happy ending, in which every aspect of Meryl Streep's character, her whole life, is successfully pulled together: work, her mother, and a possible boyfriend. The addict's life of recovery is hardly that simple, and I think this ending hurts, but it doesn't cripple an otherwise enjoyable movie.
I've thought for a long time that there could be a very good movie made about Alcoholics Anonymous, especially in terms of this whole Betty Ford, California sort of thing that's developed. What about the other people in the movie business? How do they recover? What do they say to each other? It all takes place off screen because they'd rather have these clever one-liners and these soap opera situations, such as the one where Shirley MacLaine crashes into a tree and goes to the hospital. Of course, she's very good. You cannot criticize her performance. It's just the whole thing.
Well, you're saying that they didn't make the movie you wanted to make. What about the old line? What about the movie they made?
I like the movie they made up to a certain degree, up to about here. A little thumb up, except at the same time, I agree with you that the ending is so tidy.
Also, we're playing very much in the real world with real stars playing stars that we know. I mean, Debbie Reynolds was Carrie Fisher's mother there. So this is a picture anchored in reality. Yeah. And to cheap it out at the end, to tie it all up in a bow, I think it just leaves a very bad taste in an otherwise strong picture.
Yeah, I think you're right. Coming up, Sean Penn and Gary Oldman are gangsters from New York's Hell's Kitchen and State of Grace. That's next, and later we'll review Clint Eastwood's new film, White Hunter, Black Heart.
Wake up. Never do business with a greaser. The cops get him, they got an eyewitness, and an eyewitness puts you away.
That's Sean Penn, is a guy who used to hang around the neighborhood and has turned up again after a few years to meet his best friend, a low-level Irish gangster played by Gary Oldman. The movie is called State of Grace, and it's set in the Hell's Kitchen area, which is just west of Times Square in New York. Oldman wants revenge for the death of a friend, but his older brother, the leader of the gang, orders him to do nothing.
Jimmy Cavallo keeps getting up in the morning till I say different. You got that? You want to put it in writing on your forehead, Jackie.
And that's Ed Harris playing the leader of the gang, a small-time Irish outfit that deals in drugs and extortion under the thumb of a mafia boss. Penn is in love with Oldman's sister, played by Robin Wright, but she's got a good job and is trying to leave the old neighborhood behind.
Every time you turn around down here, somebody else is dead.
What are you talking about?
How many weeks we go to his kid just because somebody forgot to pay back money?
Every time we turn around, somebody's dead. Huh? Hey, bull! Hey, Steve!
This is a well-acted movie, and one of the best performances in it is by Gary Oldman there, who got under my skin after a while. At first, I was seeing this unkempt hair and this, I thought it was just another one of those mannered, gritty performances, and then I began to realize how much there is to this kid in terms of the fact that he feels for the neighborhood even more than he does for his life of crime. He sees his criminal career as some way of protecting the neighborhood against yuppies and Italian-American gangsters and anybody else who might come in. I enjoyed that aspect of the movie.
That's the part of the film that I enjoyed the most. We have two of my favorite actors, Sean Penn and Gary Oldman, and particularly Oldman. You know, he's not a name that is still well known, yet I think we should probably at some point take a look at his career. This guy continues to make major acting statements. I mean, he's really quite powerful here. The writing for me seems a little soft on these guys, I had a reaction where I was thinking, why should I care about them?
Oldman has a line that's given to him where he says, they don't even call this area Hell's Kitchen anymore, they call it Clinton. It sounds like a steamboat,
right,
indicating that Clinton invented the steamboat.
Right.
Something he would not be likely to say. Okay. That's a writer's line, and there are other lines like that in the movie that should have been taken out. And as I was looking at the movie, I kept thinking of Scorsese's new film, Goodfellas, which is going to open around the country in another week. It's just so much better than this. I mean, this is a good movie. That's a great movie.
Yeah, that film takes the one coming up, takes a real hard stand, I think, against its mob characters. This picture is a little romantic.
Yeah. Coming up next, Clint Eastwood plays director John Huston as a man more interested in hunting big game than shooting a movie. The movie is called White Hunter, Black Heart.
Paul, I hope I don't have to kill you before this picture's finished. The wrong thing to do. Not for guys like you and me, kid. You just gotta pack up and go.
Clint Eastwood plays director John Huston, a man preoccupied with being a macho man, even when making a movie in White Hunter, Black Heart. Much like Mike Nichols' movie Postcards from the Edge, this film, starring and also directed by Clint Eastwood, is a sharp commentary on movie making. The film being shot in White Hunter, Black Heart is a real one, the famous film The African Queen, starring Katharine Hepburn and Humphrey Bogart. Eastwood plays director Huston, who is not so excited about this movie as he is excited about the opportunity it affords him to go on location big game hunting in Africa. The Huston character enjoys risking his life and doesn't mind risking the lives of others, including his cast and crew. The Huston character is equally hard with his colleagues about the script of the film. Here he talks roughly with the writer and one of his most sympathetic associates, well played by Jeff Fahey.
John, there are no rules to art.
There are hundreds of rules. Hemingway understood that. That's why he always reduced life to its simplest terms.
In a very fine speech, Eastwood, as Huston, talks about Hollywood.
That word has crept into the conversation quite a few times, hasn't it?
Which word is that, sir?
Hollywood. Oh, I realize it's just the name of a place, but the way you say it has an added meaning. Like an insult.
Now, some people have complained about Eastwood's accent in this film. You could hear it, obviously, in that scene. He is speaking in the manner of John Huston, and I bought that. And I also bought the strength of the Huston character, a principled man, self-involved to be sure, stubborn to be sure, self-destructive to be sure, but a man who nonetheless did deliver in the crunch, whether it was a film or a verbal broadside at a phony. He goes after one there, and there are many others that he attacks in this film. And when he talks in those scenes, I felt that there was some real tension in that room, that he could explode and just take this guy out of commission. Macho is a word that is held in such low esteem these days, and that's why one of the many pleasures of White Hunter, Black Heart is that I think Eastwood's character is a macho man worthy of admiration, flaws and all. I like this picture, and I like its eyes-open portrait of a true character.
I like the picture too, but I don't agree with you that it's a favorable portrait of the Huston character. I think it's essentially an attack on Huston, a guy who puts up a wonderful front of his big ideas, of his brave stands, of his liberal notions and so forth, and then when push comes to shove, he doesn't deliver as you say he does. He really puts the entire movie on hold because he wants to shoot an elephant, and this movie is essentially about his comeuppance, about his humbling, about a lesson that he learns.
I don't think that he is really out to destroy the picture. I think this is the way the guy worked. I think that he makes the movies.
That's not something that Peter Vertel would agree with you on. He's the guy that wrote half of The African Queen and wrote the book this movie is based on, and the book and the movie are a very negative portrait of Houston, basically of Houston learning a lesson.
I think that they show, I keep saying, warts and all of his flaws. All of the flaws are there. At the same time, I think he's a stand-up guy, and that's where we differ.
Well, it's a good movie anyway.
I think so.
Bruce Dern plays a psycho named Uncle Bud who talks Rachel Ward and Jason Patrick into kidnapping in the new thriller After Dark, My Sweet. That's coming up next.
I don't know another guy in this country pulls a stunt like that and gets away with it.
A hard-boiled writer named Jim Thompson wrote 29 pulp crime novels, was ignored by the critics at the time of his work, died in 1967, and today is the hottest author in Hollywood. A new movie named After Dark, My Sweet is the latest in a line of films based on his books, which also inspired Sam Peckinpah's The Getaway, Bertrand Tavernier's Coup de Torchon, and the upcoming Stephen Frears film, The Grifters. After Dark, My Sweet tries the experiment of telling its story entirely from the point of view of one of the characters, an ex-boxer and sometime mental patient, who's named Collie and played by Jason Patrick.
Go away, Collie. This little scheme's been cooking for months, and if you leave, it'll go right on cooking till it boils away. I'd ask you to stay the night if it wasn't for Uncle Bud, but I don't want him talking you into this mess.
That's Rachel Ward as the mysterious Faye Anderson, who may be attracted to Collie or may only want to use him. She's hooked up somehow with a disgraced ex-cop named Uncle Bud, who's played by Bruce Dern.
Chauffeur's here at 3:45, never a minute earlier. That means by 3:40, you gotta be airborne.
Airborne?
It's quick in and out, kid. You show up dressed in the uniform, tip your hat to the place supervisor, scoop up little Charlie, and away you go.
Now, this film falls in the category of the great 40s and 50s film noir pictures, and what I like about them, as opposed to the straightforward crime movie, is that an ordinary person finds himself in a situation where evil people around him are showing him that there is evil that he's capable of as well, and usually he's in way over his head. That's what happens to the Jason Patrick character here. And the neat thing is that the way James Foley, the director, structures this movie, we're never quite sure what the relationship is between Rachel Ward and Bruce Dern. We never know exactly what they're up to.
Well, I think that what's so good about this picture, and I really like it, in fact, it's the film that I like the most on this show, and I wouldn't be surprised if this made one of my year's best pictures, is I think that for all of the aberrant behavior here, they're involved in a kidnapping, and he's a boxer. He's hardly an average guy. He's come out of a mental home, and he's been brutalized. There's a love story in this picture that I found fascinating between Rachel Ward and him, and it's very tentative. They're both scarred, deeply scarred. I've already said his problems. She's alcoholic. She can't trust anybody. And will they get together in any way? And when they do, it's such a tentative step, but it seems to mark what most love relationships involve with the risk-taking, that I thought this picture was wildly romantic in a strange way, and also shockingly fresh.
The movie was directed, as I said, by James Foley, and he made At Close Range with Christopher Walken and Sean Penn, one of the best movies of the last 10 years. This is another good one.
This is very, very good. It's come out at the end of the summer. It's not going to be seen by a lot of people. I wish it would hang around in theaters for a little bit and people would see it. It's really quite strong. Next, a special segment as Roger takes us on a tour of a very small but important American film festival.
850 tickets to the 17th annual Telluride Film Festival, which is held over the Labor Day weekend up in the Colorado Rockies. And that easily qualifies Telluride as the smallest film festival in the world. But many of the most important directors, writers, actors, and distributors in the independent sector of the movie business make it their business to take that long trip to Telluride because they expect to get the first word on some of the most interesting movies of the autumn. This isn't New York, Toronto, or Cannes in the French Riviera. It's Telluride, Colorado, a small town nestled 9,000 feet high in the San Juan Range of the Rockies. Every year over Labor Day weekend, filmmakers and fans from all over the world make the trek to this obscure and difficult-to-reach location. Last year, the Telluride Film Festival provided a preview of some of the year's biggest movie stories. Daniel Day-Lewis attended with My Left Foot, the film that went on to win him an Academy Award for Best Actor. David Lynch was here to preview his TV hit Twin Peaks. And we also got the first look at Michael Moore's controversial Roger and Me. The Telluride Film Festival, now in its 17th season, is probably the biggest little film festival in North America. The crowds line up all over town for screenings in every available space, from the Jewel Box of the Sheridan Opera House to the Nugget Theater on Main Street to the cinema upstairs over the Masons Hall to the Quonset Hut that also doubles as the community center. In the evenings, there are free screenings under the stars in the Abel Gance Outdoor Cinema, also known as Elks Park. And it was in Elks Park that the restored version of the 1927 French silent classic Napoleon was shown for the first time in more than 50 years. Its director was here at Telluride, Abel Gance, 93 years old and frail, but he was able to see his film after half a century by sitting in the room of his hotel right here across the street. The big attraction in the outdoor cinema this year was the American premiere of Clint Eastwood's new movie, White Hunter, Black Heart.
I was looking at the view coming into town today, and I thought, you look at this view and they're going to run the movie outdoors. Nobody's going to be watching the flick. So, we have some good scenery in this film, but nothing that compares to Telluride.
At most film festivals, you hardly ever see the big stars and directors. But at Telluride, all you have to do is walk down Main Street and you're likely to run into all the big celebrities in town. For example, at the open-air actors panel, here were Sissy Spacek, Gerard Depardieu from France, Liam Neeson, the Dark Man, Christopher Walken, and Helen Mirren. Telluride functions as kind of an early warning system for the films that people are going to be talking about in the autumn season. And one of the ones I think they're going to be talking about the most is Barbet Schroeder's Reversal of Fortune, with a brilliant performance by Jeremy Irons as Klaus von Bülow.
You do have one thing in your favor. Everybody hates you. Well, that's a start.
Another film I liked at Telluride this year was The Long Walk Home, starring Sissy Spacek and Whoopi Goldberg. Spacek as a woman in Montgomery, Alabama in the late 50s, whose maid, played by Goldberg, decides to join the bus boycott and walk to work. Good performances by both women.
We're going to win this thing, Miss Thompson. When it's all said and done, people are going to look at you, Miss Thompson, and they're going to say that you were part of this.
Well, let people say what they're going to say.
You'd never worked with her before.
No.
What kind of a relationship did you develop?
We developed a wonderful relationship.
Okay.
Though I was saying to somebody yesterday, there was a lot of tension on the set, and I'm sure it was because of where we were and because of the subject matter.
Christopher Walken was here in two roles. He's the star of King of New York and The Comfort of Strangers. When you develop a body of work like yours, in which you've played a whole lot of villains and very, very strange people, does that affect the way that people relate to you when they meet you for the first time?
I had a guy walk up to me in New York recently, and he knew me. And he spoke to me, and I assumed it was because he knew me from the movies. And as it turned out, he thought that we had been together in prison.
Gerard Depardieu won the Best Actor Award at the Cannes Film Festival for his leading performance in Cyrano. Now he was launching the movie in America here at Telluride. Liam Neeson is a box office star right now in Dark Man, but he had a smaller film here called The Big Man.
I met Gerard Depardieu, who's like an idol of mine, has been for like 12 years, and I saw his film, and just the easy atmosphere there is here, you know, it's a real festival. Festival being a celebration, and a celebration of movies.
After a few more stops on the festival circuit, including Toronto this week, Reversal of Fortune is going to open in late October, and The Long Walk Home with Sissy Spacek and Whoopi Goldberg will be a Christmas picture. I think they're both being positioned, obviously, for Academy Award consideration.
Now let's recap the movies we reviewed on this show. 2 thumbs up for Mike Nichols' Postcards from the Edge, the attic story that we both thought was hurt by a soft ending. A split vote on State of Grace, the Irish gangster story. We both liked Gary Oldman's performance. I thought the writing, however, was too romantic. 2 thumbs up for Clint Eastwood's portrait of John Huston, White Hunter, Black Heart. 2 thumbs up, way up, for James Foley's After Dark, My Sweet. Strong writing and a tough love story combined to make it one of the year's best. And I should point out that Jason Patric, I think, really gives a tremendous performance in that film.
You know, there's another thing. I think the fall season is here. After the doldrums of late summer, it always seems like in fall, better movies start coming out, right, and they're beginning to come out, and none too soon, let me add. That's it for this week. Next week, we'll be back with Martin Scorsese's new film about the New York Mafia named Goodfellas, starring Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, and Ray Liotta. We'll also review Hot Spot with Don Johnson and Virginia Madsen. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.
Snowcaps, Raisinets, and Goobers. 3 big box office hits starring Nestle Milk Chocolate. Moviegoers give them a definite 2 thumbs up. Super 8 motels with over 700 locations nationwide and the American Express card welcomed at all of them. Don't leave home without it. Ruffy's Color Sense trash bags with colors to match any decor, plus fresh deodorizing fragrances. Color Sense, the best value you'll ever throw away. Shout now, wash later with Power Stick Shout. In tests against the other sticks, Shout one out 2 to 1. Want tough stains out? Choose Power Stick Shout.